Hi, I'm John Stevenson, and we're going to be looking at the instance where Jacob wrestles with God in Genesis chapter 32. This is part of our continuing series on the book of Genesis. Back in Genesis chapter 28, we saw Jacob's first encounter with God. He had a vision of a ladder stretching to heaven, and after that, we see him moving to Haran. He gets there. He marries, first Leah and then Rachel, and his wives have children, so we could say his wives are fertile, but not only his wives, also his flocks multiply, and there's multiplication of children and of flocks. And then after that, now Jacob is coming back from Haran. I describe it as a flight from Haran because he actually initially runs away. Laban catches up with him. They make their peace. And now he's finally coming back into the promised land, and again he's going to have an encounter with God. This time it won't be by dream. Time it won't be a ladder. It will be a messenger, the way you say that in Hebrew. A malach, a angel, is going to be meeting with Jacob. Genesis 32:1. Now, as Jacob went on his way, the angels of God met him. And then we have a further description of that. Jacob said when he saw them, "This is God's camp." And so he named that place sort of camping out, or camps, or Mahanaim. That's just the same term, only it's dual, two camps, as it were. Then Jacob sent messengers before him to his brother Esau. So he sees the messengers of God. He sends messengers. We're going to see lots of messengers here. And when we use that word messenger, remember it's the same word that's used to describe an angel. It can be a human messenger, as it is in this case, or it can be a divine messenger. But Jacob sent messengers before him to his brother Esau in the land of Seir, in the country of Edom. That's way down to the south of Canaan. He also commanded them, saying, "Thus you shall say to my lord Esau, thus says your servant Jacob, I have sojourned with Laban and stayed until now. I have oxen and donkeys and flock and male and female servants, and I have sent to tell my lord that I may find favor in your sight." He's trying to make peace with Esau, because the last time that he had heard from Esau, Esau said, "When I can, I'm going to come and get you. I'm going to kill you." The messengers returned to Jacob, saying, "We came to your brother Esau, and furthermore he is coming to meet you." Oh, that's wonderful. And 400 men are with him. That's not so wonderful. That sounds like it might be a party against him, and that's the way Jacob takes the news. Then Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed, and he divided the people who were with him, and the flocks and the herds and the camels, into two companies. For he said, "If Esau comes to the one company and attacks it, then the company which is left will escape." He's assuming the worst on the part of Esau. And now he prays. He points out in his prayer, he says, "Lord, I was obeying you." Jacob said, "O God of my father Abraham, and God of my father Isaac, O Lord, who did say to me, 'Return to your country and to your relatives, and I will prosper you.' That's what you told me, Lord. I'm doing it, and don't let me down." And so he's here because he's obeying the instructions of God. Of course, he's afraid of Esau because of things that he did before he was obeying God. But lately he's been obeying God. Furthermore, he recognizes his own unworthiness. He says, "I'm unworthy of all the loving kindness and all the faithfulness which thou hast shown to thy servant. For with my staff only I crossed this Jordan. And now I'm coming back. There's a whole bunch of people. I'm two companies." He recognizes his own unworthiness. Jacob also prays for deliverance. He says, "Deliver me, I pray, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, lest he come and attack me, the mothers with the children." And so he says, "Look, we've got mothers and children here. Lord, can you deliver us?" Finally, he prays according to the promise of God, and I think there's something special there, because God had promised, and Jacob says, "You promised, God," and so he sort of holds God to his promise, and that's okay. That's not presumptuous. That's okay to do that, because God had promised. Now he arose that same night, and took his 2 wives, and his 2 maids, and his 11 children, and crossed the ford of the Jabbok. He took them and sent them across the stream, and he sent across whatever he had. Now the Jabbok River, it's a river that flows into the Jordan River. It's one of those tributaries. We know about it because of its name. The name Jabbok means the place of wrestling, to wrestle. And it's here that Jacob is going to have his encounter, his second encounter with God. Then Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until daybreak. Now, I think we're going to get a sense this is more than just a passerby and a pedestrian. It's described as a man because that's the form that it is. But there's something special about this man. And this man is wrestling. Remember, or we said this is the place of the Jabbok. And so he's Jabboking. And when he saw that he had not prevailed against him, he touched the socket of his thigh. So Jacob's socket was dislocated while he wrestled with him. Now, back when I was a lot younger, I had a slip and fall and dislocated my thumb on my left hand. And goodness, that was painful. And so I can only imagine the pain involved and the endurance involved where in the middle of this wrestling match, his thigh is dislocated, and yet still he won't give up. Then he said, "Let me go, for the dawn is breaking." But he said, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." Jacob's been after the blessing his whole life. That's what started him on this road, was the desire for the blessing. So he said to him, "What is your name?" And he said, "Jacob." Remember, that means heel grabber. And throughout the night he's been holding on to this unknown assailant. And he said, "Your name will no longer be called Jacob, but Israel, for you have striven with God." You have Isra'd with Elohim in this case, and with God and with men, and have prevailed. God's striver. And God, there's a sense in which God calls us to come, and not to strive against him, but to strive with him to get that which he wants to give to us. Then Jacob asked him and said, "Please tell me your name." But he said, "Why is it you ask my name?" And he blessed him there. So Jacob named the place Peniel, for I have seen Elohim, face to face. Penny v'penny. So Peniel means face of God. And yet my life has been preserved. Now the sun rose upon him just as he crossed over Penuel. It's going to be the name of there's going to be a town there eventually. And he was limping on his thigh. After all, it's been dislocated. It's very painful. Therefore, to this day, the sons of Israel do not eat the sinew of the hip, which is on the socket of the thigh, because he touched the socket of Jacob's thigh in the sinew of the hip. That became a memorial to the descendants of Jacob. In closing, there's an interesting contrast between Jacob and Jesus. In Jacob, we have one who wrestled with an angel. Jesus wrestled with sin and with Satan. I guess you could describe him as a fallen angel. In Jacob's case, he was a victor by grace. In Jesus' case, his victory obtained grace for us. In Jacob's case, his hip was thrown out of joint. Jesus is described prophetically. All his bones are out of joint. Psalm chapter 22. In Jacob's case, he won by losing but refusing to let go. In Jesus' case, he won by losing his life on the cross for us. In Jacob's case, he released the angel before the sun rose. In Jesus' case, the sun hid its face as he was on the cross. In Jacob's case, he called the name of the place Peniel, the face of God. Jesus went to the cross, dying that we might see God. In Jacob's case, as a memorial, the Israelites do not eat the sinew of the joint. And we have a memorial too. As a memorial, we're called to come and eat at the Lord's table. Remember, Jacob, before this encounter with God, he's He's facing Esau, who's on his way. Jacob wants to be delivered. He's praying that he would be delivered as he meets Esau, and he's afraid of Esau. After meeting God, Jacob has been delivered, and really, meeting Esau is no big thing. Jacob's fear of Esau is gone, and as he finally does meet Esau, he finds out there was nothing to be afraid of anyway. Because when you've met God, you've met the most important one of all. If you fear God, that's the one you need to fear.